Welcome to this Masterclass Explainer. Look, today we're going to take you from a complete beginner to an absolute apex pro. We've gathered the absolute best, most advanced tips and mechanics from across the community, and we've structured them into what we call the Pyramid of Mastery framework. If you've been feeling stuck in your current rank, or if you're just exhausted from getting beamed by players who somehow move and shoot on a completely different level, you're in the right place. Let's get you leveled up.
Here's our game plan. We're going to build your skills from the ground up. We'll start with audio and inputs, move into aim and recoil, step up to pro movement tech, zoom out for macro and rotations, and finally, lock in your combat positioning.
All right, part one, audio and inputs. This is all about building your foundation. So a lot of newer players just stick to the original audio mix by default, right? Makes sense. But if you're serious about competitive play, switching over to the new focused mix that dropped in Season 27 is an absolute necessity. I mean, before you can even think about winning a 1v1, you've got to be able to actually process all the sheer chaos of a Battle Royale match accurately. This focused mix is honestly a total game changer because it completely clears up the audio clutter. First off, it actually mutes your squad mates' footsteps. No more freaking out and second-guessing who's walking right behind you. On top of that, it uses a dynamic threat system and multi-band sidechain compression. Now, in plain English, that just means it dynamically turns down background noise, like distant explosions and abilities, when things get really heated. The results? You are literally never going to miss hearing a flank again. Now, what about your physical inputs? Well, whether you're rocking the rapid trigger precision of a keyboard with Hall effect magnetic switches, or you rely on the crazy close-range tracking power of a controller, you have to optimize your specific setup. If you're on mouse and keyboard, you absolutely need to bind jump for the scroll wheel. That's non-negotiable for movement tech. And if you're on controller, you really should be utilizing a linear 4-3 or 4-4 response curve. That linear curve is exactly what the pros use to get that incredibly sticky close-range tracking.
Moving on to part two. Aim and recoil. Time to focus on the hands.
So here's a wild question for you. Is it actually possible to shoot a weapon in this game without any vertical recoil at all? We all know if you just hold down the trigger, your gun kicks straight to the sky. But then you watch the pros, and they're shooting absolute lasers. How on earth do they do that? Well, the secret sauce is a mechanic called aim smoothing. It's this crazy technique where maintaining a continuous horizontal, or sideways, tracking motion with your crosshair literally overrides the game's vertical recoil mechanics. Seriously, if you are constantly panning your screen left or right to track a moving target, the game basically just turns off the vertical kick for you. But to pull off aim smoothing perfectly, you really gotta learn your strafes. When you're up close and personal, you want to mirror strafe. That means you match your target's direction, so your left hand on the keyboard or thumbstick does the heavy lifting for tracking, leaving your right hand to just make tiny micro adjustments. Now at a distance, the target is moving way slower across your screen, so you want to counter strafe, moving in the opposite direction of your target. This forces your crosshair to move faster horizontally, which perfectly triggers that aim smoothing effect. Please, don't be that player just spraying bullets at the clouds. Go spend 5 minutes in the firing range doing this exact drill. Grab a base weapon like a flatline or R301 and absolutely do not put a barrel stabilizer on it. You need to feel the raw kick. First, tap fire the static signs just to warm up how fast you acquire targets. Then, shoot at blank walls to learn the raw recoil patterns. Once you understand that raw pattern, then you apply your aim smoothing, and I promise you're going to turn into an absolute beam.
All right, part three. Pro movement tech. Let's talk about the legs.
You've probably heard of tap strafing, and yeah, it is a completely critical skill. Basically, by rapidly tapping crouch, like 5 to 7 times, while holding a strafe direction midair, you can instantly, violently redirect your momentum up to 90 degrees without losing any speed. It's insane. Doing this completely breaks your enemy's line of sight and lets you dodge incoming fire like a true predator. And of course, we have to talk about the legendary super glide. A super glide is way faster than a normal slide, plus it keeps your crouch hitbox intact. But man, it requires extreme precision. You sprint toward a ledge, start a mantle animation, and then you have to input a slide and a jump at the exact same time, within a microscopic 20-millisecond window, literally. This is exactly where having those rapid trigger keyboards we talked about earlier pays off big time, bridging the gap between what you want to do and what actually happens on screen. Okay, moving on to part 4, macro and rotations. Time to use the brain.
Look, mechanics alone aren't going to win you tournaments. You could be the fastest, most accurate player in the lobby, but if you get caught out in the open, it's game over. If you want to hold the best positions on the map, you absolutely need to understand the vector method. This is a pro-level mathematical approach for predicting exactly where the late-game match will end, long before the ring actually closes. It sounds complicated, but here's how you do it. First, map an imaginary line from the map's absolute center to the edge of ring 1. Then, map a second line from the center of ring 1 to the center of ring 2. By doing some quick mental math to calculate the spatial difference between those vectors, you can accurately predict ring 3. This lets you confidently rotate into the final zone way before anyone else even has a clue where it is. Now, you have to pair that zone knowledge with some incredibly strict rotation rules. First off, rotate on a strict timer. Don't sit there waiting to loot just one more bin. Second, follow cover chans, meaning you never ever just run across an open field. Always move from a rock to a wall to a building. Also, avoid those central hub POIs during the mid-game because, trust me, every other team is passing through there. And finally, if your squad is low on health or shields, stick to the outer edge lanes to stay safe.
And finally, Part 5, Combat Positioning. The absolute peak of the pyramid. Let's talk about healing. Traditional healing items are honestly often a death sentence in the middle of a chaotic fight. Think about it. 3 seconds for a shield cell, 5 seconds for a battery, 10 seconds for Phoenix Kit. In Apex, when you've got multiple teams closing in on you, sitting still behind a box for 5 seconds feels like an absolute eternity. So instead of hiding for 5 seconds, you have to master armor swapping. If you can quickly grab a fresh, fully charged Evo shield straight off the ground or out of a death box, you get an instant, immediate health reset mid-combat. The pros will actually purposefully pile up extra armors in their defensive setups just so they can instantly swap and get right back into the fight without ever slowing down to pop a battery. And this really highlights the ultimate difference in combat positioning. Beginners tend to camp behind a single piece of cover, which just makes them super predictable. Pros, on the other hand, practice something called min-maxing. They literally never peek the exact same angle twice. They are constantly shifting around dynamic, high-ground cover to maximize the damage they dish out while taking 0 damage in return. It keeps the enemy completely guessing. As our source material reminds us, movement and mechanics are learnable skills, not some innate talent you have to be born with. Practice makes perfect. They just require you to put in some actual dedication in the firing range instead of just playing on autopilot for vibes. Every single thing we've talked about today, from dialing in your audio mix to calculating vector end zone predictions, can be mastered by anybody willing to put in the time.
So armed with this entire pyramid of mastery framework, the choice is totally up to you. Are you going to keep playing on vibes and getting sent back to the lobby, or are you actually ready to put in the work and dominate the Predator ranks?